Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
Latham Thomas. Welcome.
Hey, y'all.
Me and you kind of have the same job.
Yeah.
Help deliver babies.
But you are not a doula. Relax. Okay. There's actual training that goes into that.
Help deliver 5 of them.
Yeah,
Not-
but you was in a
that.
hospital, though.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? With medication and all of that other good stuff.
That is correct, but welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all. Thank you for having me back.
We missed Black Breastfeeding Week, what's it called?
Yeah, there's Black Breastfeeding Week was in August.
Okay.
Black Breastfeeding Week.
Yes, the 25th to August 31st.
And what was that about?
Well, it's really about affirming the specific experiences that African-American women have and the challenges we have around breastfeeding and our history with breastfeeding, but also self-determination and showing that this is a time that we can reclaim our bodies as sacred and really lean into these practices that are not only good for our health, but are ancestral. And we know that like our people were breastfeeding and wet nursing this nation.
Word.
And so there's a lot of historical trauma bound in breastfeeding as well. So it's a way to address that, but also to address some of the systemic challenges we have around it as well, and some of the policy gaps.
I saw your post too, where you were talking about slavery and how, our African-American sisters were impregnated and then forced to feed the master's baby while our own baby starved.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about that type of trauma that gets passed down, right, we know that intergenerational trauma is real, right? We're starting to see this. And I love that you guys have taken this stance on really looking at trauma in our communities and embracing pathways to healing, including therapy. And we know there's meditation. We know we have so many tools as people of color, but a lot of them we don't lean into. A lot of them have been seen as like, not as good as other practices, right? Because they're not necessarily evidence-based, right? And so, but we need to lean into our healing practices, I think, to reclaim this period for ourselves, and especially because motherhood is such a powerful time, and parenthood in general, right? It's such a powerful time in people's lives, and it really changes your life, right? But if it's bound in trauma, then we're passing that down, right? And the womb is the first environment. So whatever your baby's exposed to, whatever energy they're marinating in for that, like 40 weeks is also going to, turn on certain gene expressions when they arrive.
Right. And you talk about how when white women are breastfeeding, it's seen as empowering, and when Black women do it,
it's like anthropology or it's like, it's seen as different, maybe like not as wholesome. I think now with the tools of like social media, right? Like people get to express themselves and you get to see different lenses on an experience that was taken away from us. And so I feel like right now, so many women are sharing, but also not just publicly, but like in, on social media, but in public spaces, right? Like being in the subway and breastfeeding, or being uptown. I see women now that are like, asking questions. And I'm like, wow, I'm so glad they're asking these questions because it wasn't passed down generationally. And we see this in like Black and Latinx communities so often. And so we are under-resourced, but we also are the people who are doing it the most, but need and are breastfeeding the least now.
Right.
So it's really time for us to pick that back up.
At what age should usually kids stop breastfeeding?
So it really depends. Like the World Health Organization recommends that babies breastfeed at least to a year old, but the world average is like 5 years old.
5 years old.
Yeah. So a lot of people, it's old.
They got teeth.
Yeah,
They got everything by
yeah,
then.
we just saw Ice-T's
They
like
in
Coco.
school. Yeah.
And her child is almost 4.
Yeah, I
and she
breastfed till my son was 3. He was definitely able to do, like, he was riding a bike almost.
Right.
He was going into preschool, and I was like, can we like have a conversation about this?
He was making dinner.
He was able to do a lot, but also there was a social stigma like from people, but I didn't have it from like social media, right? And I think that would have been different, like if you're posting pictures and people are like, shaming you. So I didn't have that. I just had it from my immediate peers or family members who were like, girl, you need to put that baby down. But my son's health is like impeccable.
That's what they said. The longer you breastfeed, it has a lot more benefits when it comes to you.
Yes, they never get sick because there's immune factor that's passed down. And for people who don't know, the first 18 months of life, babies get passive immunity from their mothers. So all the antibodies that their mothers have built up in their lifetime are passed down to the baby while they're breastfeeding. So that means that also another beautiful thing about it is that when the baby gets exposed to any pathogens, the mother will take a sampling of that and actually pass antibodies back through the breast milk to the baby. So every time, so the baby doesn't get sick most of the time. And so that's so great for people, especially in communities where we don't have access to quality medical care, we can't get to hospitals, or we don't have insurance. This is like a way to safeguard our baby's health, and minimize the amount of doctor visits and ear infections and things like that.
Yeah, because I don't have kids, but when I saw that picture of Coco and people like going in, I was like, let me go look this up and see about it. And that's when I learned that it is a lot of benefits to breastfeeding and continuing that on past the 2-year mark.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, right? And we know that, like, when we think about it, it sounds easy and it sounds great. But then you think about, okay, 1/4 of all women go back to work 10 days after giving birth in this country, which is like, I mean, everything, like it's a lot going on, right? So you're not even recovered. And 6 weeks is a normal recovery period. So you figure you go to 10 days in, there's not time for bonding, there's not time to establish a milk supply. So it's really challenging for a lot of people. And so even though we say, like, yes, you should go, for a year at least, it's like figuring out what are the systemic barriers to people being able to actually do that. Yeah.
Did you see the couple that was 70 years old that gave birth?
70?
Yeah.
I think, was that in India or something?
It was another country.
It was another country. I think I did see something about that.
Would you recommend that?
I mean,
and I think it was an egg that she had and implanted.
She had to have that egg frozen.
Yeah. I gotta remember exactly how it had. Let me look it up. But
I just think about chasing behind a 2-year-old, like,
and they're both sick now in the hospital.
Yeah, no. I mean, I feel like, if we're bringing kids into the world, it's great if you can look after them yourselves. It's great if you have community, but I don't know. I just think about myself when I think about having another baby, and I'm like, okay, I'm not even, 40 yet. I'm on my way, but I'm like, I would be so exhausted chasing behind a baby at that age. I can't even imagine.
It's exhausting.
Because there's a lot of women, like we see.
It is exhausting.
Tamron Hall had a baby at 48.
Which is amazing.
Which is great.
Yes.
Kenya Moore, we see women that are
they're having babies later in life, because, there's a stigma with that too, right? Just like we have a stigma for young women having babies, we have it for what we consider older or geriatric, right? This quote unquote. And so I think it's great that people are saying, hey, I've established my life, I'm where I want to be, and now I'm choosing to have a family, because many of us, we don't get the opportunity to really plan, right? It's like, you just found out you were pregnant, it's like, oh, I guess we having a baby, right. Or some people,
we're going to make it work.
We're making it work, or it's ambivalence, you get pregnant, you're like, I don't know, or you might, a lot of people, like with abortion and loss, like it's very common, and so it's like, to be able to choose and intentionally and have your partner and your setup, that's like amazing.
And be financially good.
Yes.
And say, okay, this is, a great time. And
it's fantastic to do it conscientiously, right? And be able to prepare. I think that's always great. It's not always common, but if we can get there, that's great.
Why are the percentages for African-American women dying after birth? Why is
Black
so high?
maternal death rate.
Yeah, why is that so high?
So a couple of things. Number one, the CDC just released a report like 2 weeks ago saying that the rates have actually increased. So when I was here last, the rates were that Black women were 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth due to childbirth-related causes, and now it's 4 to 5 times than white women. Yes, and that's nationally, but in New York City, it's like 12 times higher. And so this is like, there's a bunch of things. The sort of larger lens that we take is looking at systemic racism and bias in these spaces, neglect, the fact that like the medical system has been steeped in a culture of patriarchy and supremacy, and has a lot of outdated practices that have not been addressed. And so when somebody goes in to deliver their baby, and they say they're in pain or they're experiencing something that may be indicative of some sort of type of illness, then they're getting dismissed instead of treated. Or if they have something like preeclampsia, which is associated with high blood pressure, right, which is pregnancy-induced hypertension, if they have that, but like they have swelling, they have all the signs, but then they're sent home, they can have seizures, they can go into shock, they could also lose their babies, right? And so this happens more often than not, that people don't catch a lot of the basic health risks, because also like a lot of women report that they are going to the hospital and are going to their doctors and getting care, but they're not getting the type of concern for their needs. And also, if you're in pain and you're perceived as not being in pain, right, because Black women are seen to be able to tolerate more pain, then it's like, why would I give you an epidural? Why would I give you, anesthesia? Why would I give you an analgesic if I don't perceive that you need it, right? So it's like you're being dismissed in many ways. And now what's been so great in light of all this reporting, like New York Times did a big piece that was seminal, and ProPublica did a big piece, and then it started to become part of the consciousness. You guys have brought it into the public sphere as well. And I think one of the big pieces is folks showing like their actual experiences. They'll go viral.
Like
so we've
Serena
been seeing
Williams.
Serena Williams shared her story, which was crazy. Beyonce shared her story. And these are people who have all of the resources, right? So we know that if economics can't protect you and education can't protect you, then there's other issues at hand, right? That are huge policy gaps that we have to address through not just, waiting for the medical system to do it, but for us to show up. And so what that looks like is learning how to advocate for yourselves, hiring a doula to come in and help to educate, provide educational support, informational support, partner support, but also the advocacy piece. Advocacy tools are so important for people to be able to speak up for themselves, especially if you don't know medical jargon.
That's the main reason I don't want to have any kids anymore, because my second daughter, what was the thing you said?
Preeclampsia.
I think my wife had that.
Yeah, so that was a emergency situation.
Emergency
then.
section.
Yeah.
She had the baby at 8 months. And then my third daughter, same thing. We was in the hospital, and they just like, oh, we don't have any more anesthesia. I'm like, how you don't have no more anesthesia? Epidural, I'm sorry. They just don't have any more. I'm like, how you don't have any more epidurals?
Yeah,
They're like, well, if
sense.
she can push it out. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, you said, we got resources. We got money. We're in a good hospital. They just, she's black. She can shoot it out. And I'm like, you know what? We're not having no more kids after this.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But that should not be the experience, right? Like she should have, and even if the outcome was great, right, which it was, it matters how she recalls the experience. It matters what she felt, what she was meant to feel in that moment. She did not feel empowered when she asked for something and she's met with, oh, you can just handle it, right?
And she was happy that she could push it out thanks to Latham.
Yeah.
Because she had a C-section the second time, and they tell you that you can't have you can only have
Vaginal
another
delivery.
C-section. You can't have a vaginal
Yeah.
delivery after that, but she did because of Latham. I don't want to give all your tricks away, but
It's all good. The information is free. The energy ain't free, but the
Want people
information
to be
is
able
free.
to have that information.
Yeah.
Because my wife, the first, my oldest, which is 17, when we had her, my wife had 103 temperature.
Wow.
100, got up to 104, but they didn't think she was going to make it.
Wow.
Because it was so high. And I just remember the people at the hospital didn't know what to do. They thought maybe there was an infection. They thought maybe they left something inside. This was out in Long Island, my first border. And I just remember this old African black lady came in the room and was like, I'm going to pray for you. And you don't need nothing else. And she prayed and she took care of my wife. And and it's very scary, but you never expect it. You figure they have all the technology.
Everything.
They have everything there.
Yes.
But you just don't expect it.
But in this country, we have the most resources allocated to maternal health, but we're 55th in all developed countries in terms of maternal deaths. So it's like we're spending the most money, just like military. We spend the most money in the war machine, but like look at it's crazy. So it's really like something to be thinking about. Like really, how do we look at women and how do we prioritize women? And when I talk about this, I'm talking about an entire lens of a woman's experience, right? Because we know reproductive life cycle includes menses and bleeding, right? When your daughters get their periods, when we get our periods at first, pregnancy, abortion and loss, breastfeeding and birth, obviously, and then menopause. So we have to fight for every single aspect and not just center the movement around just abortion right now. Because if it's not safe for, Black women to give birth, and we're putting at the top of the feminist agenda just the fight for reproductive rights. We need to be focused on reproductive justice. Like, what does that look like as an entire continuum, and making sure that everybody is served, and that we're specifically focusing on the most marginalized people, which we know are women of color first.
Right.
Now, you also talk about yoga.
Yes.
And you teach yoga
I
as
love
well.
yoga.
And how
Yes.
much that helps when women are having babies or about to have a baby.
Yeah, like if we can get into like a physical and mental practice, it's so key for stress reduction, for obviously keeping your body fit and pliant, because labor is like not called labor for nothing. It is work,
Yes.
right? Like
I
when
mean,
you
I
get
don't
in
know,
there,
but it looks
he's
like
like, oh yes, of course. He's like, I got my sweatsuit on. Ready to go. But it is, right? It's really a lot of energy that's involved, but also you connect with your baby, you connect with your inner intelligence, right? This internal wisdom that you have kicks in. And when we do mindfulness practices, it helps us to like attune to that. And it also makes us more open to other types of healing modalities. Like a lot of people be like, oh, they got into yoga and then they became vegetarian, or they got into meditation. It's like on a gateway practice that takes us on a pathway towards more positive practices and habits in our life. Because a lot of things that I feel like we do, we know that it's good for us, but there's not necessarily spaces that make us feel welcome. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people won't do yoga because they go and they're like, I'm the only Black person, or I have this body type, or you got to look like,
or people are too advanced.
I don't know if I can put my leg behind my head. But it's like you got to show up in some way. There's obviously video. There's all kinds of, you can go to YouTube and even find a yoga practice. Like you don't have to go and spend money even, but just like saying I'm going to be intentional and tune into like the fact that I have breath. Like I'm alive, I'm breathing, you know, instead of just like tuning into your feed, tune into your pulse, you know what I'm saying? Like check in with yourself. And I think that that's so critical right now because the existential stress is like on 10,000. Like everybody's stressed out. The social media, you always talk about on here, I hear you guys always talking about how like the power of social media, like it's a powerful tool, but a cruel master. Like you cannot be ruled by, you know, everybody's voices, especially people you don't even know.
What are some of the misconceptions about pregnancy? Because one, and this is crazy because I got 5 kids. I used to think that my wife couldn't work out. Like, you know, you don't want to work out. You don't want to lose weight. You don't want to run. You don't want to walk on the treadmill because you just don't want to affect the baby. What are some of the misconceptions about pregnancy?
That's definitely one of them. Exercise is really helpful, right? And because, again, like you have relaxin, which causes the muscles and the ligaments to relax. And so that makes you more susceptible to also injury sometimes. So exercise is really good to help strengthen, to help with strength and flexibility.
I heard you push that baby out faster too when you exercise.
Especially if you learn how to like, you know, release the muscles. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. Especially squats, you know, that could be very helpful because that makes your pelvis real open. No drinking.
A lot of people say you could have some people say you could have a glass of wine once a week.
You could do that when you could do that to go into labor because it'll relax you, but not in the beginning because it's a very delicate, you know, it's so delicate, the whole cell division, the process, it's rapid and there's all kinds of things that can go wrong in that very beginning stage, right? So when we're in like embryology, like when it's not, it's just tissue dividing, right? Cell division. When we get to where it's like a baby and, you know, you're like at 39 weeks and you're just like, it's hot, you know, I just want to like take the edge off. You can have a glass of, you know, but not a full glass, right? Like, you know, like 6 ounces or something, not nothing crazy. Just something to like kind of calm your nerves, but it's not necessary.
Gotcha.
But definitely do not be drinking during pregnancy, y'all, right? Like no drinking.
Why even take that chance?
Yeah, I would not take that chance. But yeah, people smoke too, again, for their nerves and for like relaxation. And we have an endocannabinoid system and there's actually cannabinoids in breast milk. So we know that like our bodies have like grown alongside these plants, like, and
that's
there's
CBD,
ancient,
right?
Yeah, CBD.
Yeah, people tell me that all the time. CBD's in breast milk.
Yeah, it's in breast milk, but doesn't mean you should be necessarily taking it. You should, you shouldn't be smoking. I think it's really about like having a good relationship with a care provider who can tell you like what might be okay for you, what might not be okay for you. But using like topical things, like there's a lot of things that can help with pain. You can use stuff like that.
What about getting a perm or dyeing your hair?
Okay, so a lot of people avoid that because there are chemicals in the dye and it obviously goes right into your bloodstream because like your scalp is like permeable. So it's better to try to avoid like anything intense like that. And also a lot of it doesn't work. Like a relaxer doesn't work in the same way when you're pregnant.
Right.
Yeah, because that hair is like some different kind of hair, honey.
Like fall out.
Yeah, and it's really strong. It grows very quickly. But yeah, it's like it's something that you want to avoid. You know, toxins, which are in a lot of products, especially in our communities, right? Like we have products that are marketed to us that are not safe for us. And so when we think about like the lotions, the creams, like Vaseline, which rhymes with gasoline, like we're using stuff like this all the time because it's tried and true. It's been in our community for forever. But when you turn over the bottle and you look to see the ingredients, a lot of them should not even be in our bodies.
Damn, I gotta stop using Vaseline.
Girl.
I didn't ever pay attention to that because I grew up using Vaseline.
That's all we had growing up.
I know. That's what we were,
every night I
being ashy
Vaseline.
was like not part of it, right? It was like we were so, like lotion is very important to us.
Yes.
Right? Being moisturized.
I can't even go to sleep without some lip balm.
Same. Mine is right next to my bed. So I understand that. But I think that, again, we have so many healthy products. We have like shea butter, which you can get on 2/5, and your skin will be glistening, right? So there's so many things we can do that are more natural, and this is a good time to also do that, to eliminate things that could be harmful to the mother and baby and the environment, and also to look in the home and see like, what am I using? Like what am I cleaning the house with?
Right.
If you use toxic products
use
to
all
clean the
natural
house,
products to clean my house.
absolutely, because also the baby's crawling, and then everybody's inhaling what's in the house. So sometimes the home is also really toxic.
Right, your dishwashing detergent. That
Yes,
you're using to clean
all
your
of that
dishes.
stuff to be clean with, 100%.
You got some stuff on that list. What you got?
Oh, I was just gonna like address some points, like in case you know.
And the Continuum Conference.
Yes, I'm so excited about this conference, you guys. It's our first one. It's gonna be at the William Vale Hotel. Have you been there in Brooklyn? It's amazing.
Where's
it's in
that?
Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Oh, Williamsburg. Okay.
Yeah, Williamsburg is kind of getting hot. Like I walk around, I'm like, oh my God, where did all these black people come from?
You know,
it's
I just
amazing.
bought a condo in Williamsburg
You did?
last week. Yeah.
Then you need to come over.
Okay.
You gotta come kick
it's
it.
It's amazing over there. They have everything in Williamsburg. It used to be deserted. Now there's like an Apple store.
There's an
Whole
Apple
Foods,
store.
there's the Orange Theory workout.
Yes, everything is there. Everything. I mean, you can't really get like good Spanish food like you used to be able to, but like that's a whole nother story.
Gentrified now.
Yeah, it's totally gentrified. But this conference is amazing. It's going to address fertility, pregnancy, new motherhood, everything in between. It's November 3rd. And it's going to be a day of programming, and people can come and learn and also meet other people who are going through what they've been through. So, we'll definitely address like maternal mental health, because we know that this is a critical issue in our country right now, and we're just starting to have that conversation. I think that y'all have been really pivotal also in making it more acceptable to even look at the fact that there's a mental health crisis in our country.
Absolutely.
So in postpartum, that's amplified, and like only 15% of women get diagnosed, and even of that group who get diagnosed with postpartum depression or perinatal mood disorders, even of that, like maybe even 5% of those people will actually carry through with their care, which means that then we have people walking around depressed or even anxiety, maybe even psychosis sometimes. And so it doesn't go away by not treating it. And that's why I think it's so powerful to even look at that as a lens of like our culture in general. If we don't address our trauma, it does not go away. Right, and so we have to also recognize that when a mother is distressed and she's in a setting where she's not getting the quality of care she needs, that we need to put tools in place for her. And so one of the things that we want to do is create community in the conference. So there's mentors, there's conversation, but obviously there's panel discussion. But when you move outside of that, there will be groups that you're placed into so that you leave there with like connection, not just like a lot of information only, because you know how you leave a conference, you're like, that was amazing, and you go back to your habits like 2 days later, right? So
and you're giving scholarships too, right?
Yeah, we're going to have some scholarships, and we're going to give a code to Breakfast Club listeners.
Oh, nice.
So that they can, come and be able to attend.
Well, can we do that now? Do we have it yet?
Yeah, what should we call the code?
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
Breakfast Club.
So
BC is shorter though.
Breakfast. People can buy Breakfast
yeah, they
Club.
can spell Breakfast Club. Y'all can spell it, and if you don't, then you're not getting a discount. So
Right.
Code Breakfast
Google
Club
it.
at checkout, and it's at thecontinuumconference.com.
Okay.
And then use Breakfast Club at checkout, and you'll get like 10% off.
And before we go, what is this bill A364B?
Yes. So this is a bill that was designed to look at the maternal health crisis, and it's actually for reimbursement for doulas.
Okay.
Now, it's been it actually was quietly passed. Governor Cuomo did not sign this bill because in the condition that the bill was in, everybody contested it. All the doulas spoke. First of all, they didn't even talk to doulas when they, wrote this bill.
No sense.
Right. And so there was a lot of controversy, but also conversation about like what needs to be put in. So the idea is that the state wants to set in place some standardization of training so that they can then decide who's a certified doula and who's not, and then have people then be able to process reimbursement for doula service when you go into the hospitals. So it's important to be talking about reimbursement. It's important to be talking about reimbursement that is a living wage, right? And so people who are doing this work need to be able to continue to do it, but they need to be paid properly to do so. So that's one aspect. Another thing is that standardization of anything creates homogeny, right? And so like if we decide that like everybody across the board has to be taught the same things, then how do we determine that they're learning the things that they need to learn to be able to serve the most marginalized, right? Or to meet like the needs of everybody right now. So there's been a lot of issue around that because what we saw in midwifery for hundreds of years of propaganda is that now a lot of people don't even trust midwives because they feel like they're outside the system. So if doulas decide that they don't want to comply with this law, they might be seen as like outside of the system, renegades, or like less worthy. So they haven't figured out how they're going to totally handle this bill, but it will be signed into law. So people should go online. They should, they should share their opinions, their thoughts, but a lot of action has been taken already in the doula and birth community. So now it's really like everybody sharing their stories, and also making sure that when you move into settings where you have to address birth or breastfeeding, whatever it is, that you have the tools and the people that you need to reach out to. For us, it's been really important to educate, right? And so we have a doula immersion program. It's global. It's New York, Miami, Paris, and LA. Mm-hmm. And we grew it over 200 students in like 15 months. It's been amazing. We just had 2 back-to-back, a level 2 and a level 1 these past weekends, and it's been amazing. And we're launching November 17th in Miami, 17th to 19th. For those who want to, take the doula immersion, you can go to mamaglow.com to learn more, or just hit us up. But this is for us, like, to flood the community with more doulas, access to more doulas, and especially in places where there isn't any. Right. And so this legislation will help shape a conversation for the rest of the country, because obviously everybody follows New York. Mm-hmm. But it's really critical that people who are not even involved in this work also bring their voice in, because it's not just about us like preaching to the choir. It's about everybody else getting up to sing as well. You know what I'm saying? We all have to stand up, and we all have to use the power of our voices to speak to an experience that affects all of us, not just when it's abortion, not just when it's like, but really critically important to hit these areas of birth specifically, because all of us are here because of it. Right? Like we got to make sure it's right for all women.
Well, Latham, we appreciate you for joining us this morning.
And again, where can people find Latham? Let people know where they can find you.
Yes, I'm on Instagram as Glow Maven, GLOW.
Own Your Glow, baby.
And yes, I have the book Own Your Glow. And then mamaglow.com if you want to learn more, if you want to get involved, if you want to advocate, if you want to protect this process of women in birth, we're ready to receive you.
If you think you can't have vaginal delivery after C-sections, Latham is the person to holler at.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, it's Latham Thomas. It's the
Such
Breakfast
a pleasure.
Club. Good morning.